Good morning. Welcome to Coffee with the Pastor. Glad you've joined me this morning. We are in Passion Week. We're in the book of Mark, Mark chapter 14. We're on early Friday morning, right before daybreak. Jesus has been brought before the Sanhedrin. He's been arrested at the Garden of Gethsemane. He's been brought. He ends up at Caiaphas's house, the high priest. I have visited there and I've looked, and I didn't take pictures of that place, but when I go this December, I'm going to make sure and take pictures. It's a very interesting house. The house that Caiaphas lived in still stands today. There was a dungeon where Jesus very well may have been kept, kind of a jail type down at the bottom. And then there's a courtyard. And Peter's outside in the courtyard watching what's going on. And you remember Peter's the one at the Last Supper when Jesus said, one of you is going to betray me. Peter's the one that got up and told Jesus, if everyone else betrays you, I'm going to stay with you. I'll die with you if I need to. Well, let's look and see what happens. While Peter was below in the courtyard, one of the servant girls of the high priest came by. When she saw Peter warming himself, she looked closely at him. This is just free for whatever. When I grew up, I thought that Israel was just a desert and blah, blah, blah. I just thought it was hot there all the time. It can get cold in Israel, believe me. I know. I've been there in January and February. It can get cold. And so it's apparently kind of a chilly morning. And he's warming himself by the fire. But the servant girl recognizes him. She says, you also were with that Nazarene, Jesus, she said. Verse 68, but he denied it. Peter denied it. I don't know or understand what you're talking about, he said, and went out into the entryway. He just walks away from the woman. She says, you were with him. I saw you. And he said, I don't know what you're talking about. And he walks away. When the servant girl saw him there and said, again to those standing around, this fellow's one of them. And so she's not letting it go. She's saying, hey, he's one of them. And again, he denied it. After a little while, those standing near to Peter said, surely you're one of them, for you're Galilean. Apparently, those from Galilee had an accent. They could tell where you were from. And Peter began to call down curses on himself, and he swore to them, I don't know this man you're talking about. Peter started cussing. Started calling down curses upon himself and said, I don't know what you're talking about. Immediately, the rooster crowed the second time. Then Peter remembered the word Jesus had spoken to him. Before the rooster crows twice, you will disown me 3 times. And he broke down and wept. So this very confident, arrogant guy who was never going to deny Jesus would have his back no matter what. That's a servant girl. Intimidate him. When she says, hey, you're one of them. He denies it. He walks away. She follows, looks at those around and said, he's one of them. And he denies it. And when those folks around say, yeah, you sound like a Galilean. You're from there. You're probably one of them. He begins to call curses down upon himself, and I don't know what all that entailed, but I get feeling it wasn't good. And he called all those things down, and then the rooster crows. And Jesus had told Peter, before the rooster crows, you'll deny me 3 times, and he had denied Jesus 3 times. Luke's gospel has a very interesting thing, because Jesus catches Peter's eye right as the rooster crows and knows what's going on. But Peter breaks down and weeps because he knows what he's done. He knows he's denied his Lord and Savior. Now, the good thing about this is that he doesn't do what Judas did. Judas betrayed Jesus, and he went out and hung himself. He went into such depression. Peter goes back to Jesus. He gets restored and becomes arguably the most important apostle of them all. Uh, and so I think that's where we have to be. I think, number one, we don't need to be arrogant to think that we can't fall. Uh, that's just silly. I remember when we have to be aware that we can fall. And when I was in seminary, I had Dr. McGorman for New Testament Greek. He taught us a lot of New Testament Greek, but he also taught us how to pastor and taught us about life. And we had a pretty large class. It was probably about 50, 60 of us in there. Mostly men, mostly married men. I was single at the time. And he had gotten disturbed because he had heard about 2 or 3 of his former students that had had affairs while pastoring. And that just really bothered him. And he looked at the class one day and he said, "How many of you think you might be capable of an affair?" And I'm sitting there thinking, well, I'm probably capable of that. So me and another guy raised our hands. We were the only ones in the class that did. And I'm thinking, uh-oh. And he looks at us and he says to us, he says, "You two, I don't worry about. The rest of you, I'm scared to death for." And he basically said, you better be aware that you are capable of sinning and sinning any sin. And it's only when you're aware of that, number one, you have to keep yourself out of those kind of temptation places. Secondly, you have to rely upon Christ and his Spirit, which Peter will do, to fill you, to keep you out of temptation's way. And I think that's important for us. Let's don't get arrogant and just think, well, I can do this on my own. I can live this life without sin. No, you can't. Peter couldn't, and you can't, and I can't. We need Jesus, and we need to be aware that, but by the grace of God, there go I. And so take the lesson of Peter with you today. And I'm glad you joined me. Tomorrow we'll talk about Peter before Pilate, and we'll talk about the 3 trials he had. He had 3 before the Jews, which that's finished. He had one before Annas and Caiaphas, and then the Sanhedrin. And then he's going to have 2 before Pilate and 1 before Herod. Mark doesn't mention all those, but we'll talk a little bit about those later, probably tomorrow. And all. So you have a good day, and I'll see you tomorrow.